Welcome to the 8th International Conference on Development and Investment in Infrastructure D2 2022, presenting on the legal frameworks in construction and demolition waste management in Zambia. My name is Simfukwe, co-author to Dr. Alice Lungu. The context of this presentation includes introduction, literature review, methodology, results and discussion, conclusion, recommendation, references. On the introduction, we're saying that construction solid waste is one of the biggest composition of solid waste globally. As you can see, that this construction and solid waste, this construction demolition waste has been disposed along the roads, along the riverbanks, used to fill the potholes. So you can actually notice to say this is a big problem that has been observed. And despite having all these problem of disposal and all this problem of managing the social waste, we actually have got the regulatory framework in place. One which is Local Government Act, secondly Public Health Act, thirdly Factories Act, fourth Environmental Management Act, EMA. So now the question remains to say, how effective are these existing legal framework for managing CDW in Kitwe? Actually, CDW means construction demolition waste. We dive direct into the literature review where we're saying that these wastes come from different activities, one which includes construction, renovation, and demolition, of course. There are various ways of managing this waste, one which is reuse, recycling, and disposal. But of course, we get to notice that disposal is one of the main form of managing CDW in Kitwe. And also it poses environmental, health, and social economic consequences. So now we say, so now we want to find out the extent of CDW disposal problem. And actually, even though there are no proper statistics available, we can actually notice to say that in 2012, the country generated about 842 tons of solid waste per day. This is estimated to increase to about 3,774 tons per day. That is by 2025. And the biggest problem is to say that only 20% of the waste that was collected, only about 20% of that waste was collected, and that means about 80% of the waste was disposed indiscriminately, which means some were disposed along the roads, some in the riverbanks, and some were used to fill the potholes. We continue. We've got the 4 legal frameworks which are used to manage this waste, and one which is Local Government Act of 2019, which provides for services of management of waste by local authorities. The shortcoming for this one, it relies on the Public Health Act for addressing issues of public health. Secondly, which is Public Health Act, Chapter 295 of 930, which provides for the prevention and suppression of diseases, regulates all matters connected with Public Health Act. Thirdly, we go to Factories Act of 1966, which mandates the construction and demolition and operation to be under the supervision of the competent man. For it's got each one shortcoming which fails to provide for disposal of waste. And lastly, but not the least, is Environmental Management Act of Act number 12 of 2011. For this one, it prohibits indiscriminate disposal of waste, and also the contravention constitutes an offense, fine of up to 50 penalty units or imprisonment for a person for a period not exceeding 6 months or both. The methodology for our paper, which was used qualitative inquiry, case study, and Kitwe was used as a predominant copper mining town, as you know. Methods include a literature review, semi-structures, questionnaires, documentary review, and observation. On the observation, we can see that we use Riverside, Kana East, Kana West, Kwacha, all these areas. So on the data analysis, we use thematic analysis of qualitative data, and then we use secondly simple frequency for quantitative data. We we dive directly into the results and discussion. The method the method of managing CDW and same structures questionnaires were used, and the respondents were contractors, consultants, and regulators, which they did indicate to say that disposal was one of the many methods. One of the many ways or which were used to manage the construction and demolition waste. So now there you can see on the diagram, and then as we continue to on the results and discussion, well, we see that the extent of the problem is quite big. Where you see the disposal of these waste, you can just see that it's been disposed just outside the gate, and here just outside the wall fence. This is actually broken PVC tiles and concrete debris dumped just behind the wall fences in Riverside. So you see that the extent of this problem is quite huge. And you see to say that the local authorities collected and dumped in designated areas only 20% of the total solid waste, which means the 80% were indiscriminately disposed. You can see for yourself the pictures which are here to say that these wastes have been dumped in places which they are not supposed to be dumped. You can see along the roads, just on the demolished house here, debris dumped in Dindeke, Kwacha, Buchi, Kana West, respectively. We continue with our results and discussion, where we're saying that how effective are these legal framework. We can see number one to say that the shortcomings for these legal frameworks are that pieces of legislation rely heavily on others for interpretation. That is a very one of the biggest problems that we have. And despite having been amended, some pieces of legislation like FA and the PHA are rather too old to cope up with the challenges of managing the solid waste in generally. And there, number three, we can see that there are rather too many pieces of legislation to refer to, and that becomes a very cumbersome process for the people. And lastly, but not the least, you can see that apart from EMA, that provides for fines or imprisonment for both the offenders, both for the offenders, the PHA only provides for a fine after protracted legal proceeding, while the LGA and FA offer no tangible penalties to the offenders. Even the newly introduced one, which is Solid Waste Regulation and Management Act of number 20 of 2018, you can see that it fell short in the management of the solid waste. Yeah, so that's how the problem. So when we proceed to the results and discussion, there was a question was posed to say, is there a need for specific law for construction waste? And you can see that many affirmatively answered to say to this question to say yes, there was need for a specific law for construction waste, and just a few said no to the proposal. So you can see to say that that is it. And on the conclusion recommendation for this investigation that was conducted, we see to say that we can see for ourselves to say that heavy reliance on other pieces of legislation for interpretation and enforcement of provision. And secondly, some of them are outdated to cope up with the challenges of managing the solid waste. Thirdly, there are many pieces of legislation to refer to, and that becomes very cumbersome. Sorry for that. And lastly, but not the least, they lack meaningful incentive for the compliance, which means the offenders of this problem or disposing of this construction waste are not punished accordingly, or are not appreciated for those that follow a good procedure of disposing the construction and solid waste. Therefore, there is a need to formulate a construction industry specific legislation for waste management, which would, among other things, clearly define and categorize construction waste, outline the penalties for non-compliance, and set procedures for enforcement of the provision therein. This is the end of our presentation. We thank you very much. These were the references which were used to come up with our investigation and our paper, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.